Hello and welcome to a new edition of the Home Cheffies Bootcamp Talk series. And today we've got Mohit Khattar, who's the CEO of Graviss Foods. You might know them better as a consumer, as the people behind Baskin Robbins. And Mohit, I must tell you before we get into anything else that one of my earliest trips to Mumbai was in '97 when I just started working in IMRB. And at that time, there were two places which we wanted to visit as pilgrimage, and not Amitabh Bachchan's bungalow, but one was one was McDonald's at Bandra, and
Right.
then the Baskin Robbins at Bandra, where we went and had the chocolate a la mode brownie thing. Because one of my colleagues, he'd studied at Wilson College in Bombay, so he had an
Right.
advantage. So he took us over. But things have come a long time since then.
You'll
In
be
'97.
surprised, Kalyan. Baskins was one of the first brands to come into India after the very first wave of liberalizations.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yes.
in the early
Yeah.
90s, when the economy got liberalized, it was
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
first brands to come into India.
Yeah.
And this is again one of those brands that has seen iconic queues outside stores,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we've
Yes.
obviously come a long way since then, but
But
yeah, that's been brilliant.
what a school or batch that was, because that was the time when I was just coming out of B school, and
Yeah,
when the liberalization happened. So there was Baskin Robbins, McDonald's, and food way before Burger King's, Kentucky
way
Fried Chicken,
before, way
remember?
before. Those guys are
And
pretty recent entrants. So
Bachas. Then
yeah.
there was I think Lee jeans. Lee came before Levi's. Bosch and Lom's contact
Caution
lens.
law, more, yeah, that's
Let's not
true.
forget Pepsi and Coke.
Pepsi and Coke, yeah.
And I came into India when I was about 8 years old. We were abroad earlier, and to Calcutta, so 80, 81. And at that time, one of the biggest things for me was that there was no Pepsi and Coke. And
Yeah,
back then, even if you were 8 years old, you were allowed soft drinks.
yeah.
Don't
I
tell
mean,
my
there was a
nieces.
certain fun element. It was aspirational. It was all
and
pretty
and back
nice.
and back in the day, kids were given ice creams or soft drinks. I mean, not at the regularity. Maybe we used to have it once a year. So it was
Yeah,
sort of
yeah. Very true, very true.
okay. Yes.
Unfortunately, for the ice cream industry, uh, if you look at just consumption patterns across the globe, uh, India is still pretty much, at the lower end of the spectrum. The consumption of ice cream therefore remains very, very low, and driven exactly by the same mindset that
Yeah.
20 years ago we guys didn't have it. So,
And then within that, different price points, and then milk and all of that. In fact, I remember the first of this talk series was with Anil Viswanathan of Mondelez. So he was saying the same thing about Cadbury and chocolates, that it's so low penetration that a big part of it
yeah,
is increasing consumption. Okay, folks. So
absolutely.
let's
Even yeah.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no.
Yes.
So I'm saying that that's exactly the challenge. I mean, for us, if you look at the consumption of ice creams in the country, just about 400 ml per year per person. I mean, it's nothing. If you were to compare it with, let's say, the US or China or any of the other countries, you would find that consumption is at least 10 times higher, at least 10 times, if not more. In
And
the
now,
US,
and
in
if
the
you
US,
see
for
ice
instance, it's
cream
about
today,
22 liters or something, per person per year. And you
and
find
if
them
you
eating from tubs. They don't eat from cups.
Oh yeah, even so, when I was 8 years old, I was used to having big bottles of Coke or big bottles of ice cream.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So
And the thing is that, but that's always an exciting challenge, right? Creating a new market, because if you cost of premium mithai and that of ice cream, there's not always that much of a. But and this challenge remains, because I remember when I was in IMRB, one of the early briefs which I got 15, 20 years back was for Baskin Robbins, and to understand ice cream eating habits and how to increase it and stuff. But good, that means that Mohit's an expert in sort of building and creating markets. Before he was in Baskin Robbins, he was with Nature's Basket, which was a part of Godrej at that point. I think it's Spencer now,
yeah, that's
and
right.
setting that up. So it's been quite a long journey, and in food. And Home Cheffies is where we are sort of awarding Home Chef Power Brands. And the main idea there, more than the awards, is to first of all showcase the work of the home chefs, and two is also to make people start thinking in terms of how important it is to have a brand. And we have a jury which of fabulous people like Mohit, who are like experts in building brands, some from the world of food, some not. But in this case, we have an expert from food. So we're going to tap in his expertise over the next half an hour and come back illuminated, not eliminated, whatever it is. Yes. So, Mohit, you've been like seeing the food industry for quite some time, like and if you're talking of like say Nature's Basket, for example, that was a time when this entire opening up to international food, gourmet food was starting, and now that also seems so passe. I mean, so many of them have now become more supermarts and stuff. So, which is the direction in which you see the Indian food consumer moving? We are talking, of course, of the urban consumer in this case, to start with.
Uh, the food industry, as you I think very rightly pointed out, has seen a pretty interesting journey over the last maybe 15 years or so. It started with the advent of the supermarkets to begin with, and just seeing all that food and all those brands on shelves where the consumer had the power to choose. That was the starting off maybe in 2004, 2005. And
Yes.
from then on came the next evolution, which was stores like Nature's Basket or chains like Nature's Basket, which offered an array of products which you hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Or you'd heard of some of the brands, but you'd not really seen so many brands and so many different kinds of products together. It kind of just opened up your senses. Uh, to see maple syrup and to see craft cheese and to see so many other similar products which you had possibly, you know, uh, also it kind of, I think, coincided with, all these international television shows coming in,
Yes.
like the Australian MasterChef. And I think that played such a huge role in
Hmm.
bringing those ingredients right into your living rooms.
And
And then
imagine, it's not a
Nature's Basket
collaboration. It's not
was,
that they had tied up. It's not that
no, no, no,
MasterChef
no,
has,
nothing.
but MasterChef
No.
created this demand,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
yes,
Absolutely. In fact, you'll be surprised to know we actually went and tied up with them.
it made sense. Yes, yes,
Subsequently, it made great sense. So,
yeah,
in
yeah,
fact, we got Gary and George into India.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it was so fantastic. I mean, the
I think
kind
I
of
met them
reception
that
that
time.
they
Yes,
received in India was
yeah.
beyond our imagination. So, yeah. So, bringing food center stage and, kind of unlocking that creative potential to, use those ingredients in your own style. I remember the very first time, we were kind of grappling with the thought, how do you promote these products? I mean, nobody's even heard of them, some of them.
Hmm.
And then came the thought, why don't you get, people who are interested in cooking, maybe bloggers. Blogging, again, was not such a
No,
well-known field as it is today.
yeah,
Or, get some of these chefs, get them into your stores and, get them to talk to people. And from there on, the journey started. Very interesting. And we've seen those categories grow literally in front of our eyes. I mean, things like quinoa, for instance, I mean, not even known, nobody had heard of it. And today it's like every second person knows what quinoa is and
yeah,
how it's to be used and so on and so forth. Or any of those oriental sauces and so on and so forth.
yeah. In
It was
fact, there was a big
fantastic.
problem. There was a big problem with that.
Hmm.
Earlier one would go abroad, say on a holiday, and you could pick up a Toblerone or craft cheese or a fish sauce, and come back and give it as gifts to people,
Yeah.
and you'd be very popular. Now
Yeah.
everything's available, so it becomes a big problem when you're shopping for
True,
people.
true, true.
Yes.
So, I think the journey started from there. Today, as you very rightly said, today it's kind of passe because there are so many stores offering similar products. So there's not just Nature's Basket. There are also, I mean, there are
Food
Food Hall,
hall, and
Nature's Basket, and even the regular supermarkets now have a section of,
of course,
international selection, within their aisles. So in that sense, it's become a little bit more commoditized. That's at one level. But where will the food market go from here? That's an interesting question because as I see it today, the Indian chefs have come completely into their own. So at one level, there is increasing regionalization. At another level, there is so much experimentation happening with the international ingredients and localizing them in some ways. And I find that very interesting.
yeah. In fact, I'm
So
gonna show you something while you. No, please go ahead. I'm just trying to spot something on my phone. I'll show you, but please go ahead.
sure, sure, sure. So at one level, you believe that, maintaining the authenticity of the international ingredients, and, understanding how they are to be used, etc. And, there will be greater understanding as we go along. Today, maybe, the top 10% of the audience understands it. But, going forward, there would be possibly a deeper dive into understanding how they are to be used. So, for example, if you're using an Italian ingredient, from which region of Italy is it, and what can I actually make with it? Can I make it with the authentic recipe, or can I make it with a tweaked Indian recipe, or so on and so forth? I think that understanding would possibly, it's already coming in and it's possibly there with a section of the audience, but possibly it will start flowing down even faster. And the other trend, which is kind of inevitable, is the localization of, these ingredients and using it in Indian recipes. And that's the bigger market, much, much bigger market.
Yeah,
And that's again something bound to happen.
in fact, I remember a few years back in my market research days, we done a study for I think Godrej or something like that, and or Unilever, and we studied the rural market. And then many years back, like at least 7, 8 years back. So I don't think it's confidential information anymore. But one of the things which we've seen was that even in the rural market, there was, especially in the south, there were unbranded pasta packets which are available.
Oh yes.
And our researchers were stunned when they saw it, and they were making it. The consumers were making it in their own ways and stuff in the rural market. I found a picture which I wanted to show. Okay, so and I'll tell you why. Okay, so yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So look at the one at the bottom in the white
Yeah.
dabba.
Yeah.
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so it is. Any guesses what this is? I mean, it's okay if you don't guess it also, but it's fine. Okay, so it's fine.
Is it a risotto?
No, it's not. It's not a risotto. It's not a sambar risotto. In case you're
Huh.
wondering, so because you're talking of quinoa,
Huh.
so this is from Swati Snacks, the
Okay.
the the Gujarati place,
Right.
which
Right.
is
I know Swati Snacks. Yeah.
darling of South Bombay,
Yeah.
and they've opened a cloud kitchen in the suburbs. So they send some food over for tasting this afternoon, and
Okay.
this is the Farali khichdi. Yeah,
Oh.
I've had it earlier in Som also. It's this thing, and this was very nice. It had a nice fiery punch to it, and they had given dahi to have with it. So the first time I sort of realized, why do the Gujaratis have dahi with khichdi? Because as a Bengali, it didn't make sense, but it was fiery. But see, so I asked them that what is farali? So they said it's broken wheat. So I said, does that mean dalia? So they said, yeah. So I remember as a kid once with my mama going to a market, and he was
Hmm.
trying to buy dalia
Hmm.
because they'd grown up in Delhi and they were familiar with it. So I mean, there are so many of these Indian grains, whether it's dalia, jawar, bajra, the different forms of red rice, and then there is I think
And
the
now
quinoa
increasing
also.
evidence that, our localized grains like amaranth or rajgira, as we call it
Hmm.
in India, is possibly the grain with the maximum protein content.
So it's been quite an eye opener in terms of and one is better protein than all these discussions on whether for your DNA and stuff like that, maybe certain things which are better local and so
Yeah,
on.
absolutely.
Now,
There's the
ah,
there's the concept of localized food and so on and so forth.
and so with so much happening out there, like you said, new brands coming in, new international brands coming in, we saw that a bit in the food scenario, even in restaurants with international chains coming in, chefs coming in, restaurants like Saltwater Cafe and so on doing international food so well, Indigo and all. But is there a change now happening in the consumer mindset? Because often people who are watching the food industry like to believe that there's a movement back to local and local learning, local understanding. But is that what the consumer is looking for, or is there still?
So, what I have seen, I mean, and we cannot kind of box this conversation only for the city of Bombay.
Yeah.
But if you were to look at the entire country, Kalyan, what I believe is that both international as well as local cuisines are doing well. When you go into the south of India, the cuisines that are growing are the North Indian cuisines or the
Mhm.
Eastern Indian cuisines. When you go into another part of the country, it's possibly a different cuisine that is growing, maybe not their immediate local cuisine, but a cuisine from another part of the country, which is closer to their palate than let's say, international cuisine. So I find that
Interesting.
trend very interesting. And
Mm.
international cuisine, we've all kind of seen the growth of Chinese and Italian cuisines and Thai cuisines in front of our eyes, and we've seen how widespread and how widely adopted it has become. It's cooked at home, it's cooked now by maids, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
So it's completely adopted. Japanese cuisine still remains very niche, and it's still not made by the maids.
yeah.
So, but yeah, it's growing. I mean, today's kids, if you look at it, I don't know how old your kids are. I mean, I
Oh,
have girls.
we have two cats. So one is
Uh,
two and the
uh,
other is one. So,
yes,
and they have very particular tastes.
tastes. You're lucky. I don't know whether they have graduated to Japanese. You're lucky. So, I mean, I see adoption of cuisine, especially as amongst the younger generation. They want to experiment with cuisines which are different from your own cuisine.
Hmm.
And I don't think that is specific to our household. I think it's happening pretty much all across.
And is this for both Indian and international? Are
I
they
think it
looking
is
at food?
it is definitely for both Indian and international.
Because for our generation, when you're looking at things which are different, you're
Yeah,
still looking at the West because we were so much, in that
taken in. We were so
socialist,
much taken in by the
we are
West at
the
that point of time.
that Archie's comics burger or pop dates and stuff like
That's
that.
true. We as a generation did not grow up having burgers, Kalyan.
Hmm.
Today's generation, our kids have grown up having burgers,
Yeah.
and they're not besotted with it. They
Hmm.
like it, but they also like various other cuisines.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I have seen my girls take to the avial and the appams from Kerala
Hmm.
as much as they like maybe some of the international cuisines. So it's things which are different from what you get on a day in, day out basis at home. And I think that's what makes it interesting.
In
So
fact, that's yeah.
I
Sorry, go
see
ahead.
this trend only consolidating. I don't see this trend going away anywhere. So Indian cuisines are pretty much on a very solid footing because the taste is much closer, to their palate, and also preparation is perhaps not as unique, or as the ingredients are not as unique. They are easily
Hmm.
available. They're the same ingredients that we use day in, day out. So, that's what I see happening.
And it's funny or very interesting that you made this point about children and asking for things which are different. Because in another chat in this series, when I was speaking with Prabha Narasimhan of Unilever, who's your fellow jury member, so she also said the same thing that she's got two sons, and I think 8 and 15 or 18 or so I think the other one's 18. But importantly, they are looking for variety, and
Yeah,
variety
they're
could
looking for
come from.
variety continuously.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if our home chefs have caught on to this because when they're marketing, my feel is that a lot of the home chefs are talking to people in their age group. Like it's like they're talking to us, but maybe there could be merit in trying to pitch it at a younger audience because that's where entry could
I
come from.
find so I maybe not amongst the entries that we have seen, but I over the last, especially over the last year and a half, ever since the lockdown started, I have come in touch with so many home chefs who are doing very interesting things who I had never heard of before, and they are varying their menu, and they'll make one thing for the day or two things for the day and say this is it, and then you
Yeah.
choose from that. And I find that very interesting because it gives me a different reason every time to go back to them to check what they are doing.
Yes.
It kind of feeds in exactly to this urge to have more variety and to keep refreshing the palate every few days. So that's what I find interesting. I have not found that in the entries that I saw, but they were all very specific about a particular category, etc. And this point may have escaped them.
Yeah, and also then there's a certain I think what people like is also the exclusiveness, right? Because in this month you will get only this one chance to try this dish, try it,
That's
or
it.
otherwise wait till when it happens next. And I think that's also what adds a bit
Look at it
aura.
in another way. I mean, the chef may be trying their hand at something different which they haven't done. They're also not sure how it's going to be received. So in a way, it works for them. It works for the audience, both.
And that's the beauty of, in a sense, the small, unorganized sector. Because when it's a large company, including a company like yours, I mean, you can't. Decisions have to be taken far more seriously or with a far more thought, because the ramifications of something going wrong is,
Well,
yeah, no,
every time we have to do something, obviously there is, to begin with, there is the thought of scale.
yeah,
You
yeah,
make it for you make certain batch sizes because your machines don't run at pretty low
yeah. That is
capacity.
true.
So,
Yes.
your machines run at a certain batch size, and
Yeah,
your machines
and
are
all of us in
automated.
school have gone to ice cream things. In
Ice
our
cream
generation, it was
factories, yeah.
quality. Now maybe people are going to yours also.
Yeah,
But
so
ice
to
cream and
begin
cola
with,
companies.
that's the first requirement, and then secondly, once you're putting stock, I mean, let's say we have 700 stores in the country, the parlors that we operate, and then there are modern trade stores and general trade stores, and there's food service. By the time you make, just one run for everybody, it's a pretty large quantity. So,
Yeah.
and therefore for us, it's a little difficult to think small in terms of scale. But having said that, we are pretty alive to some of the, the changes happening in the consumer mindset. To just give you one example, obviously we are seeing an increasing trend towards, people becoming more health conscious,
Yes.
especially when it comes to eating sweeter things. So
Hmm.
you want to consume smaller bite-sized portions when it comes to
Yes.
meat. So it's no longer, okay, I'll have the whole ice cream, or let
Yeah.
me have just 2 bites, or let me
Yes.
have a small portion of it. And essentially, what you're trying to do is you're trying to either cut down on sugar, or you're trying to cut down on your calorie intake, and so on and so forth. So being alive to this, we've launched another brand completely. We were a little scared or apprehensive about tinkering with the mother brand, which is Baskin Robbins. So we've introduced another brand. It's called the Brooklyn Creamery. The Brooklyn Creamery is all about calorie controlled ice cream products as of now.
And is this India specific? Brooklyn Creamery? Is
No,
it
no, no. It's available in different parts of the
in
world. Yeah, it's available as of now. I mean, apart from the Indian subcontinent, which is Nepal and Sri Lanka, it's also available in the Middle East. It's available in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, etc., etc. Qatar, Oman, very soon in UK as well. So we'll be taking it everywhere. And of course, the brand itself is an American brand, which we have the rights for in India. So, but that brand is all about no sugar added products, vegan products, and so on and so forth. So you can have your fill, and you can have a whole portion, and you would have still consumed only 70 or 75 calories.
Yeah, in fact, we have a live case because you know we've ever since Kenneth and I got married, we've been like Baskin Robbins fans, and especially the creaminess of it. And we would order a whole tub, and and sort of, so she would then go for the chocolate ones. She still does, and I would go for the slightly vanilla based ones, like the praline almond crunch and so on. And we do a 1 by 2 sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for various reasons, almost 20 years later, sugar, weight, everything. So you're trying to not do it that often. And then this lady who's actually a diabetologist, she told us that you guys like Bavarian chocolate, and sometimes we still order it, especially during the lockdown when you've been feeling like, not that in a good frame of mind. Call for Bavarian chocolate. So she told us that there's
There's a no
a
sugar added
no
version.
sugar added version. So
Yeah.
we ordered that a few days back through Swiggy or whatever, and we had it, and we had it with no guilt, and we enjoyed it. It was satiating,
Yeah.
and it had the same creaminess, because I tried
Yeah.
some of the earlier London Creamery, Brooklyn Creamery products, but I think that here it was like, if one didn't know, one wouldn't know that this is a
You wouldn't know that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
the creaminess, the mouth feel, and
Right.
everything. Okay, now why are we talking ice creams? Of course, we have to talk ice creams with you. No, but I'll think the point I was coming to, that and you've also seen some of the home chef entries. Of course, they were specific to the categories you were judging, but you've also seen home chefs in the market. So, what do you feel is the most exciting part of this emergence of this home chef phenomena? Because I think that while home chefs are really there, it's post after the pandemic that they've really come into their own. But what excites you the most about them?
I think the as a consumer, I can answer
as
this
a
in two
consumer?
parts. One as a
Okay,
consumer and the other
as an industry person.
as a brand owner, let's say.
Hmm.
As a consumer, I think the sheer variety of what I can get, that is what excites me. The fact that somehow I also believe that home chefs tend to use better quality ingredients than what most standard restaurants tend to do.
Hmm.
So if I'm ordering a chicken-based gravy, I kind of know that if I order it from a home chef, it's likely to be fresher, and the chicken quality is going to be better than what I'm going to get elsewhere. The quality of fat used is going to be better, and so on and
Hmm.
so forth. And that's been the experience. So I'm excited by the fact that there is such a wide variety available. I don't need to restrict myself to A, B, or C. There is, possibly plenty more available. If I don't like somebody, there is absolutely no guilt. I can go to somebody else tomorrow.
Hmm.
So there's a variety, there's a choice available between cuisines, between so many different things actually. Even within cuisines, there are people who are doing only one thing. So somebody who's doing only, let's say, what do you call those? Yeah, let's say macaroons. Somebody who's doing only something else.
Yeah.
People are specializing in just one or two things, and as a consumer, I can't complain. I think it's fantastic choice. Offer great value products. I don't need to pay in, at a restaurant, the costs and the taxes and so on and so forth. So as a consumer, I have pretty much a lot to smile about.
Yeah.
As a manufacturer, of course, it's all pretty challenging because consumer palette is evolving as we see it, and the consumer demand will also obviously keep going up, in relation to what the consumer is experiencing right now. So as a manufacturer, the ball game for me is becoming harder, and we need to compete harder with better products and better value and so on and so forth. So both sides of the picture in that sense.
No, I think it's very, very well balanced. Like the two-in-one ice creams of our childhood. But you also have that swirl, one Baskin Robbins flavor, the gold medallion with the
Gold
swirls
medal
and
ribbon. Gold medal
yes,
ribbon.
yes.
We have
So
quite a few where different ice creams are blended together with
yeah,
a ribbon holding them and so on and
yeah.
so forth. So.
And I remember one of the biggest thing of the Baskin Robbins when they started was the fact that you can go to a parlor and taste.
Oh
Uh,
yes, we were one
so
of the first brands to have introduced that.
I think the first. I mean, unless
Yeah.
Nirula's in Delhi per
No,
se
no.
did it,
Uh,
I don't think
so
Nirula's is. No?
Nirula's also, but Nirula's was at that point of time in the early 90s one location.
Yeah.
It's
So
only later that
yeah.
it kind of
So I think
multiplied.
it's a
So
really Baskin which introduced it to
right.
the. Yeah. So Anil was actually Anil of Mondelez was calling these as the smaller brands as the insurgent brands. But I guess we both have their role because I mean it's a big market, like I was saying probably the
See,
other day.
as a consumer, I think one thing we've learned is that consumers are by nature not inherently loyal. They love to experiment, and
Hmm,
especially the newer generation, they don't hold brands in the same esteem that we guys used to when we were growing
yeah.
up. They don't have that fondness for brands unless it's a Gucci or Armani or Prada. I mean, that's a different ball game. But when it comes to food brands, they don't hold it in the same esteem as we guys used to. So I think that's a big learning.
But
For,
that's a great thing for people who are new, right? Like for
yes.
example, be it home chefs or new brands.
Well, yes,
I
it's
mean,
an
it's a great fact
opportunity
that people
because
are willing to try new things.
people are willing to try, especially when it comes to
Hmm.
food. I mean, we are experimental by nature, and nothing is holding us back. And
Hmm.
we also know that there is no great cost to the trial. I mean, these are small
Yes.
ticket purchases.
Yeah.
So there is nothing holding us back. There is no inhibition, therefore.
I think the only fear which people had, and which is what allowed home chefs also to make their first entry, was the fear of hygiene and health, and the pandemic. Because the home chefs came in the beginning, in the first 1 or 2 months after the pandemic.
On the contrary, quite on the contrary, Kalyan, I have more confidence in the hygiene levels being produced at somebody's house rather than in some
No, no. So
kitchen.
that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
overall, that's the fear which consumers had with trial and anything from outside coming in. and there seemed to be a bigger trust with Home Chefs. But now,
Yes.
here's please go on.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, now here is my problem that since we come also from this era of trust and brand and all of that. Now, see, while one might say that okay, if something's cooked at home versus in a restaurant or in a hotel or street side, it's more trustworthy. But whose home? Because during the lockdown, for example, our friends the Grobers who live down the road and whose home we've been to so many times would send us like stacks of parathas and chole. And my wife and I can't make rotis, and there was no one at home at that time to make it. So we would freeze those parathas. Or our downstairs, our friends Gia and Erica would be making desserts and giving it to us. But what if an unknown entity, especially earlier when there was so much fear? So which is where this thing of building a brand becomes important, right?
Yes.
So if you uh, put two things together, I mean, your experience in building food brands and what you've been seeing of Home Chefs as a customer and then also as a jury member, what are the aspects which Home Chefs need to focus on when building their brands? Like building a brand seems a very amorphous global thing. So what are the specific steps a Home Chef can take?
Brand to to most of us, and I'm sure to you as well, it means offering a consistent set of values over a period of time which the customer can then start relating to. So
Hmm.
if you stand for either a particular value or a particular type of food or a particular whatever, it's that one story that the customer has to remember each and every time.
Good.
uh,
Would you like to give us an example on maybe your brands? Like what is like for me, Baskin Robbins. I mean, the obvious thing is ice cream. Two is it's international. Then the range of flavors, the creaminess of the milk, and
yeah,
the
exactly.
yeah.
So
So
I mean,
so I'm sorry, but I don't know what your brand brief is.
no, you're absolutely right, and you've captured it bang on. I mean, Baskin Robbins has stood over, so many years for exactly this. It stands
Hmm.
for the variety of products that it offers. It stands for international quality products. Since the products are made with pure milk and pure cream, the products are extremely creamy. There's
Yes.
a certain texture and feel. The flavors are all international, and so on and so forth. So those are the things that we have stood for. Now, suddenly, if I start doing something which I don't stand for, how are customers likely to accept me? And what will be the reason why customers will possibly do that? And one of the let me give you a random example. If
Hmm.
Baskin Robbins was to do a rasmalai ice cream or a motichur laddu ice cream,
Uh,
how are you going to relate to it? Is that something Baskin Robbins can do better, or possibly another Indian brand could possibly do it better, who possibly resonates in the consumer's mind with products of that kind?
yes.
So, I think that's where a brand comes in. There are multiple examples that we can give from the personal care or the cosmetics industry and so on and so forth, or even technology, like what Apple stands for or a Mercedes stands for, and so on and so forth. Uh, in the home chef space, I think it's pretty early days. Most of the guys haven't really focused on building a brand. It's all about getting the business started as of now.
Of
It's
course.
still early days. It's still the first year of operation or maybe second year of
And many of
operation.
them don't even come from a many home chefs don't even come from a
Yes.
marketing
No,
context.
they're
Some of
not
them
coming
have
in from
not
a marketing
worked.
perspective. It's very
Some of them have not,
functional as of now.
and some of them have not even worked before. But they're
Yes.
actually creating fabulous brands
They're
without
creating
knowing
fabulous
it.
brands. There are
Without
fabulous
knowing it.
stories.
Without
Yeah.
knowing it.
Without knowing it. You're right.
Without
But
going
I,
to
I I
IIM or
think the,
Harvard
the
or
the the
wherever.
challenge is to be aware and to build it, over a period of time, so that the customer is expecting a certain set of products or a certain set of values derived from the particular range that you're offering. Uh, I saw this classic example of somebody doing, in one of the entries I saw somebody doing, I think drinks made with boba balls and stuff like that. I found it very interesting. I wanted to try it. Obviously, I mean, it's based in a city which is different from mine, but if it was here, I would have definitely liked to try it.
Hmm.
Number one. Now, how do you really build it and take it to the next level? Maybe some people may find it very niche, that it's too
Hmm.
niche a category. So how can I extend it to multiple categories? I mean, what is the benefit that I'm really standing for? Is it refreshment? If it's refreshment, then can I extend it across multiple categories and so on and so forth? And how do I pack it? I found the packaging very unique, very exciting. So there was a cutting edge somewhere there.
Yes.
Can I ensure that this cutting edge remains across all the product categories that I get into, and so on and so forth. Now, that's what building a brand is actually all about. It's about maintaining that consistency and maintaining that tonality, whether tonality is of communication or tonalities in the packaging that you have, because I mean those are your talking points, right? So how do you kind of build that over a period of time?
I like the thing which, going.
There was another brand in amongst the entries, and it was a brand about all homemade food. It was again verbalized in Marathi. Uh, if you know what I'm talking about.
I think I know the brand also.
Yeah,
But we won't take
Gharachi.
names yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but it's an entry.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's right.
yeah, it was an entry, and
Garachi,
again, I found it very interesting. Very interesting.
Hmm.
Everything was very consistent. The products, the packaging, everything was quite consistent, and to me, that's what resonates.
Yes.
So, so it's about maintaining that.
And it was a very conscious thing because I happen
It
to
was a
know
very
the
conscious thing.
people
Yeah.
behind the brand, and part of the family sort of have a bit of a marketing background, so they've thought it through
They've
that,
thought
and they
through
said
it.
that they
Yeah.
can extend it, but it'll be Gharachi, so it's
Right. Right.
and
Right.
using the local Maharashtrian word for Marathi word for it.
Right, right, right. So I found that very interesting, and so those are, I mean, those are stories, and they can build over a period of time. But if you're doing a category which every other person is doing as well, and you're doing the same set of products that every other person is doing as well, then why should always come to you? Then it's only a
Yes.
level of skill that you have today that somebody else doesn't have, which they will catch up over a period of time, I guess. So to me, that is the challenge.
Yeah, and I think that's where this entire variety thing comes across because restaurants still have to sort of fill seats, so they tend to stick with whatever dishes sell. But home chefs have brought in such amazing variety, and I like this thing which you said about awareness. One of my favorite stories or examples to give is when I was in school. I read the autobiography of Imran Khan, obviously not the actor because I'm not sure if he was born when I was in school, but the current Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was once upon a time an all-rounder. And he said that he was a very fast bowler in Pakistan while growing up, and then he went to Oxford to study, and he was playing with the Oxford team. And then he gives credit to the coaches over there who started teaching him the technique. So he said, "Okay, you have this raw talent and strength and this thing, but the technique will make you aware that to where to put the ball, how many steps to take, to count the number of steps you're taking, and how to sort of look at an off swinger, in swinger, and so on. That awareness becomes a important thing. So if you were to sort of tell a home chef that in terms of awareness and brand building, like you were already saying that what are the values you stand for and the tonality and things like that. So, if what is the sort of checklist which a home chef should have, like when they're starting off, or even at this point, that what are the things which they should have answers for?
To begin with, hygiene. I mean that remains the hygiene factor. I mean it's not
Yeah.
something that you can do without. Obviously, a list of products that are unique to you, something that
Yes.
that is unique to you. I mean, if you're doing, as I said, if you're doing what everybody else is doing, then there's no reason for me to come only to you for something special.
Yes. Yes.
For example, with Baskin Robbins, I mean, I'm sorry to bring this in, but
No, please do. I mean, please
it's
use the
like
case
it's
studies.
like I don't have to remind you about a gold medal ribbon or a Bavarian chocolate because nobody else has it.
And 29 flavors, no? Or was it 31 flavors?
31,
Which is
31, 31
31 per
flavors.
month. Yeah, I mean, these are things
31
which for
flavors. I
20
mean,
years
those
has
are
been
these are
drummed in
small
your head.
things, but these are kind of integral to our identity.
Yes.
It's
Yes. Yes.
something that we have communicated consistently over the last 50 years around the
Hmm.
world and maybe 30 years in India out of that. So,
Hmm.
so to me, that's how brands are built.
Hmm.
It's not about, I'm doing chana and I'm doing puri and I'm doing roti and I do very good chana and roti. And so many other people are also doing it. So what's unique? So
Hmm.
unless there is something unique about you, I'm not likely to remember it.
So I'll give you an example. and so Sherry Malhotra, Sherry Mehta, who runs Kanak now, and
Okay.
in Mumbai it's a cloud kitchen. So she is doing Punjabi food. So if you go
Okay.
by the menu, it's chole, it's kali dal, it's
Okay. I
roti,
haven't
shoti,
tried them yet.
roti and shoti, and But
Uh-huh.
uh, her pitch is that this is the food of undivided Punjab, and like many Punjabi families, her roots lie in the west, Punjab, west of Punjab, and a lot of the recipes are based on what she remembers her grandparents cooking, and she reached out to their friends who are in Lahore now, and tried to get the recipes, and then reached up to whatever. So then that gives a different flavor, because otherwise, you like you said,
No,
I
no.
mean, there's
If there is a story behind
yes.
that,
No, I think
and
that's
that
what you're saying.
story is
Yeah.
communicated and shared with consumers, then I
Hmm.
know what to expect.
Hmm.
I think the example I was giving was that I decide to open a home chef project, and I am also making exactly the same thing which 5 other people are doing. I think that's what I meant.
No, I
But
know, I know,
if you have
and
a
I'm putting the
distinctive
two together.
story,
I'm putting the two together because you said that chana and puri, right? So now,
yeah,
what is distinctive about your chana and puri?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yes,
So if you
yes,
tell me that these are the West Pakistan recipes or the undivided India recipes, maintained for the last whatever X number of years, there's a certain story, there's a certain ring to it, and
yes.
why would I not try it? I would definitely want to try it.
Yeah, yeah, and then of course the food, and then one last point I want to make is that what we would often say in research to our clients, because sometimes the clients would come up with plans with playing around with the product, improving it, and so on, and then they would say that why is this not reflecting in our scores? But the thing is that you might make all these changes,
But
but
the
unless the
customer is not
consumer,
perceiving it.
yeah. So that's also important, right? Because sometimes home
I'll
chefs
give
tend
you
to be
another
a
example.
bit shy.
When you look at so many cake entries, uh,
Yes.
uh,
So many.
I also find that to their credit, while the home chefs have done a brilliant job, many of them are still learning. In
Mm.
terms of how to improve the presentation and how to improve the designs and so on and so forth. I also find that their understanding of what constitutes good ingredients is in some cases is possibly still not as good as possibly it should be, because they are in that domain and they are in that industry. So let's take knowledge of chocolate, for instance. What is good chocolate? Is the common chocolate available, and the taste that it offers, is that the best? Can we go better? Can we go even better? And so on and so forth. And there are brand names associated with each of those categories, and there
Yes,
are
yes.
price points associated with each of them. Uh, so I think there is a lot of learning still to do in some spaces. I'm not saying in all, but definitely in some spaces. And the only thing I would expect home chefs to do is that educating yourself continuously over a period of time is possibly critical if you are in that field. So if you want to be a successful home chef, you must know what is good, what is better, what is best, and what level I'm operating at, and so on and so forth.
No, I think that's a wonderful note to end on, because as you said this, it certainly struck me, and I'm sure, like every big company which we know, every big brand which is out there, some of whom I've worked with closely, so I know better. So whether it's food, cars, finance, soaps, everyone has some form of an R&D department, right?
Yes, of
You know,
course,
and
of
they're
course.
continuously trying to improve. Uh,
Continuously, the
yeah,
role
I'm
of
sure
research and
your company has
development,
that as well.
or the product development is not only to develop new products, but also to continuously reinvest behind older products to make them better.
Hmm.
So
So I think that that's a great learning, which I think has come out of this
also continuously
conversation.
benchmark competition. I forget, you
Hmm.
continue benchmark competition to see whether somebody else has improved, whether somebody has something new, what can we do, and so on and so forth.
So if you're offering a certain type of product, try to sort of check out what other people in that field are doing.
Are
And
doing.
also this other concept, I think, Mohit, of how do you define competition? Like, for example, say if you're someone who's going back to Puri Chole, it's not just home chefs, right? Because there would be the street corner people doing Puri Chole. There would be the UDP joints, the Punjabi restaurants, right up to maybe an ITC Bukhara or something like that. So yes, a lot of hard work, huh? But exciting stuff.
No. It is continuous work. But if that is what you have chosen as your passion, as your profession, then I think better get into it, understand, and offer the same and communicate the same.
Hmm.
That's the other thing about being consistent in your communication. It's not only about great looking pictures. I mean, of course, everybody is very Instagram driven, and rightly so, I guess, because that's the core medium by which they're communicating with their consumers. But it's also about the proposition, which I think is gets tends to get lost sometimes. So bringing that proposition out, remains key to me.
I think that's also a very encouraging thing, because sometimes people tend to get a bit intimidated by, say, Instagram, or even taking photographs or whatever, because they might not have the wherewithal, or might not be able to employ people or stuff like that. But I think there's no substitute for being able to tell a good story, right? I mean, I think that's what.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if one of the entries in the, which I personally like, I don't even remember seeing the photographs because I was so taken in by the concept. I
Yeah, and
love
that's
the
what you're
concept.
judging the most.
Yeah, because
That is
that's
the
what you're
highest
judging.
weightage story.
Yeah, I mean, I love the concept, and because the concept was so good, I wanted to read every line that was written in the menu, and then decide, whether it's something which I want to order right away or not. To me, that's the ultimate test. It kind of moved me within a period of maybe 2 minutes, and I was completely taken in by that.
And I'm
Unfortunately, it
very.
was not. Unfortunately, that entry wasn't from Bombay,
Oh
though.
my God. I think people have really tortured you, I think, by giving you entries which are not from Bombay. Maybe it's a good reason to start planning travel someday. Who knows?
Yeah,
But
sure.
what I also found very exciting about what you said, and for all our home chefs out there, is that sometimes, when one is working in one's own silo, and especially by oneself, I'm talking from the home chef's point of view, sometimes one doesn't understand the worth of what one is doing, and one thinks either, what is this? I'm just making some pakoras or some rotis or some khichdi or some noodles. But the fact that someone like Mohit, who is like the CEO of Graviss and Baskin Robbins, Lawrence Coleridge, Nature's Basket, seen so many brands, the fact that he's so excited by home chefs and he's saying that I want to place an order immediately, I think says what you're worth
I
with,
think
right?
more than anything else, I think Kalyan, you must take a bow because you guys have done a fantastic job. To be able to create a platform to recognize a category of entrepreneurs who have, as of now, been kind of sidelined or ignored by the mainstream media in that sense. I think it's a great stepping stone, and I think it's a great first step. To be honest, I think all kudos to you and to the team who have actually thought of the idea. It's always the concept that wins.
No, thank you.
So
It is.
for
It's
me, it's
been.
you. I mean, you've done a fantastic job.
Thank you. But it's teamwork. So I think that there's also Nidhi and the Booker Workshop team
Yeah.
who got excited when we spoke of this, and right from the beginning. And I think that that's come through probably in our interaction, that I think our team has been very driven.
Yeah,
We are
yeah,
learning.
absolutely.
I mean, this is our first time, so
Absolutely.
some things have been here and there, but
Right.
I think we're really excited and passionate about it. It's driven us in this year for sure.
Great,
So.
great, great.
Thank you so much, Mohit. And
Not at all. Completely my pleasure. And I'm looking forward to Sunday. So
yes, yes, yes,
hopefully we'll have some exciting results.
yes. Hopefully, a lot of people will have many reasons to have a lot of ice cream that night to
That's true.
celebrate. And
True,
we won't do
true.
an obvious plug for that.
Sure.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Kalyan.
Mohit. Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.